Hello and welcome, wonderful people. I'm Sam, and this is the first episode of a new park in Prehistoric Kingdom. Let's get right into it. So, Prehistoric Kingdom has two game modes, Challenge and Sandbox. This park is going to be a challenge park. That's how I prefer the game, mostly. Firstly, because I like the management aspects of the game, the challenge, pun intended, of having to care for the guests, the animals, and your economy. But also because it reins me in a little bit. I almost get sort of a little bit of decision fatigue in sandbox mode from all the possibilities. I'm choosing the temperate map. More on that in a bit. I think I'm gonna start with the rustic theme, normal difficulty, and then quickly I'll just choose... This is a lovely selection of starting animals. Alright, let's get into the game. So, this park is going to be called Hvalsø Forhistorisk Park, or Hvalsø Prehistoric Park. It's going to be set in Denmark, my home country, in a little town called Hvalsø in the lovely Danish countryside, which I think this temperate map works as a wonderful stand-in for. As you can see, here we are in the game. Let's get to building. Okay, so the first thing you see me do is delete the entire entrance building. That's partly because I want to build my own eventually, though that won't be in this video, but also because it gives us a little bit of startup cash selling it off, a little bit of extra money. Right, so I'm building a small plaza here in front of my very bare, at the moment, entrance. And then I'm putting down the research station, because I want some research done right out of the gate, mainly the arid theme, because I like those building pieces, and then once that's done, also the feature that allows you to choose the skins for your animals, because I want to, choose the appearance of the animals I put in the game. Just off camera I added a little bit more to that plaza, but that's not really important for now. What's important is the main focus of the build today, which is this habitat I'm starting to build for Coelophysis. It's inspired by a habitat in Copenhagen Zoo, my local zoo, specifically their flamingo habitat, which is right at the entrance in that zoo, so I figured that would be fitting. As you can see, it has this sort of boardwalk feature, where the guests actually go into the habitat or into the habitat, because there's still gonna be a fence in between them, and despite the fact that there's a little space between the boardwalk and the regular path, the animals actually can't get behind there. So in reality they're just sort of on the side of the habitat, but because of the way it's designed, it's supposed to make you feel like you're inside the habitat with the doorway here is sort of an extra security mechanism, again based on the one in the Aviary in Copenhagen Zoo. So it has two sets of doors, so in case somehow Coelophysis sort of got onto the boardwalk, you have that extra set of doors to sort of keep it in. That's very normal for predator habitat and also for aviaries. Here I am working on the doors with mesh. I'm gonna be using a lot of mesh in this build, and some of the time that gave me quite the headache, but I managed in the end. Right. As you can see, I'm sort of putting in some little door handles here. Here's my little Nigel for scale dummy. I'm sort of trying to up my game when it comes to the amount of detail and realism I put into my builds, but I'm definitely not going for sort of hyper realistic, hyper detailed, just a bit more than previously, and throughout the build I built this over a couple of days, and because as I mentioned in my last video, I'm a slow builder. I sort of build a half an hour here, an hour there, and it all adds up to a lot of editing specifically. Anyway, what was I saying? Yes, sometimes when I was building I had less energy than other times, and so the amount of details isn't necessarily completely homogeneous for the whole habitat. I will admit. Maybe I'll come back and sort of do a little more detailed work on this later. I mean, right now it's just habitat in front of an empty field and a non-existent entrance, because there's absolutely no surroundings around it, no decoration, because I'm building for function, except for the habitat itself, of course. But maybe next video, when I'll hopefully be working on the entrance area, I might come back and also spruce up the Coelophysis habitat a little bit more. We'll see. Yeah. So here you see making some very basic fences. This whole habitat is made with modular piece fences. There's no in-game fences in it, which also means I've saved it all as a blueprint, and you can essentially download the whole habitat on Steam Workshop from my page if you want. Should you be so inclined, and then you just have to add null barriers yourself, which is a very lovely. It's a similar thing in Planet Zoo, and you can essentially have invisible barriers, and as long as you have actually built something that would keep the animals in, you don't need to have the designated barrier pieces from the game, in case you're not familiar. Right, so I'm starting this sort of stable backstage building. As you can see, I lost a bit of footage here, so we're cutting to something that looks a little more shapely. Not that you have missed that much, and this building will also go through a few different iterations before I'm finished, so you're fine. Again, this is inspired by that flamingo area in Copenhagen Zoo loosely, but of course what works for flamingos won't necessarily work for dinosaurs, well, non-avian dinosaurs rather, so I also have taken quite a few liberties with it, and it's also larger, and just styled in my own way. Yeah, but actually I think it turns really nice in the end. Yeah, just fidgeting with the whole building, and just yes. The roofs won't remain the same either. I've cut out a whole lot of me sort of fidgeting around, and the thing about this game is that you can build on the grid. There's a lovely sort of grid function, and as long as you're building on the grid, things will just snap to each other and fit very nicely, like you're building with Legos or something. The problem is that, much like Legos, if you're only building on the grid, everything you're building is gonna look very square, and I didn't want that. I utilize the grid for parts of this when it's opportune, like the first part of the building here is pretty much just a big block, right? But as I go along, I really want to get off the grid and start working on some cooler angles, and that's when the game starts to get a lot more difficult. So I've cut out so much time with me just sort of fidgeting with the getting everything to be exactly the right place and no corners sticking out and so on and so forth. You still see a bit of it in here. I haven't removed it entirely. I want you to be able to see my process, but yeah, there's like, even sped up 8 times as this video is, there's like 10-20 minutes of just fidgeting that I've cut out. Also just to make this video a little less long overall. Yeah. So yeah, as you can see, I wanted the glass building, which is because it is like a glass house, sort of almost like a botanical garden house or something in Copenhagen Zoo, but I also wanted it to actually hold dinosaurs. So I have these extra barriers, the little metal ones you saw me build before, and I have this gate for the animals to enter and leave their outdoor area through, which I wanted. Again, this is like that implied realism, same as in my last video. I wanted it to look like there's a door that could actually slide down to close the animals in, but I have made no sort of buttons or handles or any other mechanisms for that would imply the keeper's actually able to open it from somewhere else in the building. I have ensured that the suffices can fit through though, as you can see here with the little sign. Anyway, here we are, because I felt like the stable building had to be bigger. And also, again, I wanted to get off the grid and get like a funkier shape. So here I am, copying it, and then I start on the really difficult part, which is connecting those two buildings together, because now I can't use the grid anymore. 2 square buildings that was fine, but this part is the difficult part. I think I managed quite well. I think it looks very nice in the end. Yeah. You can see here, just copying pieces from the parts I've already made, and then flooring, where I have to get a bit creative to make everything fit again, because now I'm outside the grid. So here you see me fidgeting again. Yeah. Okay, so just finishing up a few last touches here. And then I get started on the roof from that middle section. As I said, now I'm off the grid, it's gonna be a little more difficult, and I struggled a lot with this roof. I realized the glass is just not gonna work, because it's see-through. It's just you will be able to see all the little overlaps so easily. So I figure maybe a concrete midsection here that'll hide it away a bit easier. I tried that shape you saw there, but eventually I just give up and I make like this sort of tower structure in the middle with a flatter roof on top, which is me getting a little bit lazy, but honestly, I think it looks better in the end than what I had originally intended, and it also looks a bit more like the actual flamingo habitat that I was basing this whole thing on in the first place, which I'll see if I can put a picture up on the screen here later. Yeah, because it has this like, there's a lower part of the building with the glass roof for the animals, and then this taller wooden part, presumably for the keepers. And so I actually kind of managed to emulate that pretty well. Right, so here I'm putting in some gates, and obviously the keepers need to have a way of getting in and out. It's very neat that you can just place them wherever in this game. In Planet Zoo, I know I keep comparing them, but it's a very obvious comparison. In Planet Zoo you can only put in 1 gate per habitat, which is very limiting. Yes, so here I'm starting to decorate the inside here. Some food troughs, some bedding. There's also going to be some nests in there. And yes, backstage props. Tables and shelves. Very simple, honestly. Again, these are all props that are already in the game. I've seen some people do some amazing things with just like the art pieces, building custom props, and maybe I'll do that at some point, but I didn't have that kind of energy when I was building this. And honestly, I think the backstage props in the game actually work pretty nicely. Yeah. Here again. This is sort of my only little custom thing. I figured there's these lovely sinks in the game, and I wanted them to feel used. So I'm adding these dirty dishes and then using a glass pane to make it look like the wash is full of dirty water. Seeing this whole building now, I'm actually, in hindsight, I'm wondering if it might be a little big the building, the whole habitat actually. Because I haven't actually put any Coelophysis in here yet. Because I wanted to do that the live section at along with you guys here at the end of the video, so you can sort of see them get added into the habitat and start running around. So maybe I'll have to shuffle around some of the build at the end of the video. Right, I'm just adding some lamps here. The red ones in the middle are supposed to be heating lamps that are over the nesting area, and then a roof of the building. Finally, I make a roof work for the building by doing it like this. Thank God, or whatever divinity you might believe in, for the ability to scale and reshape all the building pieces. Because if I couldn't sort of like stretch and scale everything, I don't know how I would have managed to do this. The very middle here, I simply couldn't find a way to make it end in like a sort of a tip, so I ended up just making a flat roof with some air conditioning on top, which I figure that makes sense also. A little sign for the saying only staff are supposed to enter this building. Not that the guests are gonna get back there anyway, but you know, it seems fitting. And then back to the boardwalk. I've sort of been going back and forth throughout the build. I've tried to make it seem more coherent through my editing here, but I very much built a little bit here, a little bit there, as I've said. So here I'm back to trying to actually make the boardwalk fit the guests. I wanted it to be nice and cozy. So I'm making these funky little round huts, which are sort of the viewing platforms. And they'll of course need a bit of extra protection, because they're gonna be very close to the dinosaurs, and there's not gonna be any sort of glass or mesh in these ones, because I want the guests to have good view. So instead there are these barriers right underneath. These of course also need some lighting. I am actually, as I'm watching this, I realized that I lighted the viewing platforms, but I didn't put any lights up on the rest of the boardwalk, so I might have to go back in and add that. And then of course the rest of the boardwalk also needs some fences. These actually, I've cut out a lot and just skipped to where they're finished. They gave me more struggle than I would care to, probably should care to admit. But it looks pretty nice in the end. And now I'm on to actually, you know, doing something about the habitat itself, because we want the dinosaurs to be happy as well, not just the guests. Terrain painting here, a little bit of water. I'm focusing on what the animals like, rather than what would realistically be in an outdoor enclosure in Denmark. So the foliage is gonna be the foliage that the Coelophysis wants. The terrain, however, is mostly that just the temperate substrate, which is endemic to the map already, and just with a little bit of sand and mud to make it seem a little drier, but also a little more lived in. And then of course some rocks, because rocks make everything look better. It's really one of the easiest way to make a habitat feel more wild and alive. I'm doing that trick again that I did in the last video with all the small rocks here, placing them all down in one group and then sinking them slightly into the ground to give that pebble effect. And then I'm starting to add some enrichment items for the animals. I have checked. I know that they'll like these enrichment items, even though there are no animals in the habitat yet. And then we get to some planting. As I said, I'll focus on the animals' needs. So the plants are from the coastal biome, which is one of the two biomes that the Coelophysis likes. There's a lot of ferns mostly, and some of them look like regular bracken that you could find in any Danish forest, but some of them look a little more tropical or wild. But I don't care too much about that. The trees are some of the new paleo botany plants from the newest update, and I really wanted to use those, so that's why they're in there. And then it's onto a little sign for the opening of the area. Just very simple font pieces and the little silhouettes of the Coelophysis. Then I'm looking at the sign and I'm realizing this says aviary, and the habitat is based on a flamingo aviary, but this isn't an aviary, so I better start making it into one. And that was a struggle. That was a big struggle. It was very difficult because the whole habitat is this off-grid shape that I had already built completely. It was very difficult to make that fit, make an aviary fit over the top, and I've cut out a lot here. But yeah, you can see me trying and failing here. But in the end, I find a shape that works, and that's basically the last part of the video. Me fidgeting to make the aviary fit over the rest of the habitat, I've mostly cut out. And that's it. See you in the live play section. Here we are. Welcome to Hvalsø Forhistorisk Dyrehave. And let's get some animals in. I'm gonna make 2 males and 4 females. And real quick, I'm just gonna show off their skins. The game has some lovely skins. I especially like this sort of fuzzy, feathery one, but I think I'm gonna go with this more classic look that you see here. I'm going to go with babies to start, and realistic growth speed, meaning they'll grow up quite slowly. That'll give them the best rating and the best fertility once they've grown up properly. And also the babies look adorable. So there's that. Alright, let's put them into the game. Let's check them out. Where are they? I'm not... Didn't I just... Oh no. I think... Yeah. Okay, I didn't actually know you could do that. Pause for technical difficulties. And we're back. And look at our adorable babies running around in their new habitat. One of them has even gotten the leucistic mutation. That's a rare mutation that makes the pigment of their skin white. It's a thing animal can get in real life. You can also get melanistic, aka black animals in the game, and albino animals. Yeah, but all these babies are just adorable. I'm so happy. I'm gonna go into first person mode and give you the tour. Here we are. As you can see, this is the only sort of decoration I made in the plaza. The rest of it is pretty bare, though it does have the necessary amenities to keep the guests somewhat happy, because I need to make some money if I want to keep expanding the park. Right, but this is finished, so let's go in. Here we are at the viewing platform. Yeah, there's our little baby Coelophysis. They look very small in this enclosure right now, but I think once they grow up it's gonna look a little more fitting, though it is still relatively large for them. And here I realize I should have put something on information signs, but since I literally just put the animals in, that I'll do that later. Don't worry about it. Just gonna look at the other viewing platform here. Yeah, they're all over on the other side. I think they group up in a pack, so none of them are really here right now. But let's take a little backstage tour. Here we are in the staff area. As you can see, I've done a little bit more redecorating off camera, and there's that dirty dish I mentioned. Yeah, not a lot, but I quite like how it looks. Ah, there's another one, little drinking from its water trough. And here are the heat lamps for their nesting area. Into the habitat we go. I think the sort of terrain work, the rocks, the foliage, and I used the grassland mud to paint these little sort of trails that I imagine the animals most frequently walk. I think it all turns out pretty nice in the end. I had to redo a little bit of it when I put it over the aviary because it didn't quite fit with the original shape of the habitat. It's a little larger, but that's fine. More space for the animals. Speaking of the animals, they need names. So if you have a good name for a dinosaur or want a dinosaur named after you, comment down below, and we'll name these Coelophysis. But keep it PG, please. Well, I hope you liked the video. Let me know what you think of this park, this build. Comment down below, critique me, compliment me, like, subscribe maybe, and take good care of yourselves out there, wonderful people. I'll be putting out something new in a week, hopefully. See you then.